So, hi, church. I'm Nathan, and I'm delighted to have Rosy joining me during this time. So, hi, Rosy.
Hi.
And we're just using this opportunity to really speak on the back of this citizen series that we're looking at, which is cultivating a kingdom culture. And personally, for me, it's been amazing over the last few years to see what Rosy is doing with the Trauma Recovery Centre, to see how that is flourishing and growing, and it's amazing what they're doing with the Trauma Recovery Centre. And I just really thought this would be a really good opportunity to just kind of speak with Rosy, hopefully stir up some faith and provoke, and maybe God is speaking to people that are watching this right now to think, actually, what Rosy's about to share, yeah, that's something that's on my heart, or God's really been speaking to me about something specific. So, Rosy, before we crack on, I know majority of people are going to know about the Trauma Recovery Centre if they've been part of the Rock for a little while. But for those that don't know it or just want to be reminded of what it's about, do you want to just briefly explain?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So the Trauma Recovery Centre is a charity, and it started in Bath. My phone's just ringing. Hold on. Sorry. See, it's live. So we started in Bath actually 10 years ago. A lady called Betsy Jatiri was the founder, is still the founder, and it was set up to work with children and their families who'd experienced trauma. And it's set up so that we can work creatively with children to help them process what's happened, and also offer really informative and helpful support for the parents as well, or the carers, whoever's looking after the child.
Great. And so how long has Trauma Recovery Centre in Guernsey been going then? 4
years now. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It feels like can't believe it's 4 years.
Yeah. So what about your background then? Obviously, you didn't just go, oh, this is what I'm going to do. What's a bit of your background?
So I trained as a social worker straight out of my A-levels. So I went to university and did that child protection social work for a while. And then after that, I did various other courses, which has resulted me in becoming a play therapist as well. So I'm qualified to do it.
That's good to hear. So going from that kind of social work kind of background, what did you notice for you, like that passion for wanting to make a difference with Trauma Recovery Centre?
So when I got into social work, it was after having read a book about a boy who'd been really horrifically abused. And he talked, my light bulb moment, I guess, was he was talking about his social worker, Mrs. Gold, and he talked about how she helped him to express what happened to him, and she supported him in the process of going to court and, all his kind of recovery, I suppose. So that for me was like, this is what I want to do. So I did social work, and actually social work is an incredible job, and I don't regret doing that training, but actually it didn't give me the opportunity that I really wanted to make that intensive difference, I guess, to children and their families, to help them to recover. It's more of a protective role, I guess, a social worker, but I wanted to be in a recovery role. So that kind of social work training and background really helped me understand and hone in on what I wanted to do. And the Trauma Recovery Centre just encapsulates everything, because we work with the parents as well as the child. It felt like we were doing that holistic support to help children to move forward, but also for their parents to understand the impact of what happened to them.
That's great. So from that moment of reading that book, that was, in a sense, you say, a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Was that, would you describe that as like God starting to speak to you, or was that just like as you began to kind of go, well, that's what I want to do, that things start to happen that way? I mean, are you able to unpack that a little bit about how that journey took place?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking a lot about this, actually. I think the journey started even before that, because I was a really anxious child, and I think I really could have done with seeing a therapist, to be honest. I didn't have a particularly difficult childhood. My parents were great, but there were some things that happened that I didn't really understand. And even like going on holiday for me was put me in complete stress mode, which I now know is my body's reaction to the anxiety. But I used to feel really ill when we went on holiday, and I know now what that was, but I didn't really understand it. So I think the journey started actually of me being a child who would have benefited maybe from having something like this. But I guess it was a God moment reading that book. I think, isn't it amazing that God can be working even when we're not really asking for him to be working? Because I didn't really pray about knowing what I wanted to do. I was 17, I was in the careers room at the grammar school. I wasn't really conscious of it, and I just suddenly had this moment. And I think it probably was a God thing, and he really planted that seed. And then I've had really specific points since then that I can see that he's continued to plant more, or to grow that seed more and more, to the point that I've got to today.
I think that is so helpful for all of us to hear, because sometimes we think, well, we've got to wait for that moment where the heavens kind of open up and God's voice kind of booms out, and that's it, you do that. But as you say, sometimes it can just be like a little seed. It can be something that starts, as you say, years ago, and then it just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah.
And I think equally both ways are great. And you do hear of those heaven opening moments. And it's great, but actually be open to what maybe God is saying to you, I think is really, really helpful. I think excellent. So for like where you're at, for the Trauma Recovery Centre, maybe for the island, what are your dreams when it comes to the work you're doing through the Trauma Recovery Centre?
My dreams. I dream of all children who've been through something traumatic to learn that it wasn't their fault, to learn that there's nothing wrong with them, to understand their amazing body's reaction to what happened, and sometimes their behaviour will be indicative of that reaction, and for them to be able to move forward and to flourish and to become the adults that they were always supposed to become, and to not see what happened to them as something that's going to hold them back, but actually something that they've survived and that they are brave and courageous. And for their parents to feel encouraged and empowered, and to know that they can help their child, and that they are the most crucial piece of the puzzle, and that they matter in the worlds of their children.
That's really
just
good.
Just a small dream.
Yeah, just a small one, but actually sometimes we do limit ourselves, and we think, well, actually that's too big a dream. When actually we come to a God that does the impossible, and I think it's those moments. And actually, before we recorded, didn't we? We just because obviously you're based, you use our building when we're not in lockdown. And I've seen those moments where it's like you've almost hit a bit of a brick wall of what happens now, and and time again, I've heard you say, well, actually, this is in a way, is a time to press in more, to actually ask God, for the impossible. And I just see your team growing. I just see the fact that you're seeing more and more children and more families is phenomenal. And I think it's so exciting that you can see that it doesn't just happen overnight. And I know it's not something you sat back and gone, well, we'll see what happens. And, I'll only put a few hours in. It's been a lot of hard work, hasn't it?
Yeah. And I think if I'm really brutally honest, if people want to do this kind of thing, or follow whatever it is that they're dreaming of, you need to be prepared to sacrifice, and it's not glamorous at all. It's hard, and I think it's the ultimate in serving is following your dreams, because you literally have to give up so much, and it's been really hard. And I've had to learn that actually, if I decided not to do the TRC, God would still love me the same, and my value and my worth would still be the same. And I carry on because I've got the strength to do it because of God, and it's a thing in me that I can't not do. Yeah. And that's what's helped me to be able to tolerate the sacrifices and the hardships and the stress and all of the stuff. It's worth it to see when we do overcome a battle with a child or with a parent, or to see that restoration happening. It kind of goes, oh yeah. That's why I've stuck with it.
Yeah, and in these things, isn't it? There's moments when you think, "Why am I doing this? Why am I getting
Yeah.
involved?" But actually, as you say, you get those reminders when you see whether it's a small moment of breakthrough or just something that massively happens. It's that you see that you suddenly go, "Ah, yeah, that's why."
Yeah.
That's why I'm in this place, and that's why God's put me here. And I think that's so encouraging. I mean, I know, talking to you, you kind of, that whole kind of vision, that whole dream that you have, it inspires. So I know you've kind of already said about it requires sacrifice, but is there any kind of other pearls of wisdom that you might have just to finish this conversation off, where you would say, look, maybe if someone's got this, do you know what, I've had this for some time, or it's just something beginning to be established in someone's heart. Is there kind of any little pearls of wisdom that you would say?
Don't count yourself out. Like, I think going back to the anxious child that I was, taking a risk was terrifying for me. Like, going on holiday was taking a risk, and I would never in a million years have thought that I would do something like this. And because it's a scary thing. So don't think, oh, I can't do it because of this, or I'm not the person for the job because of this. There are so many people in the Bible, aren't there, that were like, God, choose someone else. Actually, if you've got something that you want to do, then you're the right person to do it. And don't count yourself out, and just start doing it. Just go for it. There was a couple of years where I thought this wasn't going to happen, and my heart was like, it was painful because I thought I wasn't going to be able to do this, and I just thought I have to lay it down. And then it just started happening, and we've gone from strength to strength since then. So don't count yourself out and just go for it. But be prepared for it to be really hard.
Right. And just then finally, if anybody's watching this and thinking actually they know of maybe a child that's experienced trauma or that kind of stuff, can they get in touch with you? I think from a practical point of view, is that something that we can put out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a really great website. It's really easy. So it's www.trc-uk.org. So it's got loads of information on there. So it's got resources if you want to help a child. There's books and things that you can listen to and give yourself some skills and information about trauma. But there's also a contact tab. So if you put your details in there, that goes to a central admin thing, and then they get kind of fielded and end up with me if it's a Guernsey one. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch.
That's great. And Rosy, I just want to say thank you so much, because I've obviously spoken to you a lot in the past about Trauma Recovery Centre. I love hearing like what you're up to and how the work you're doing is having an impact. And for me, when you just share, it does something in me personally of like, wow, we just want to keep kind of going forward. Because it is, and genuinely I'll say that because I think sometimes the temptation is to sit back and go, well, I don't know how that can happen. But it's those moments that you read in the Bible where you get, but God. And it's those moments of like, well, actually, in my own strength, it's not going to happen. But actually, as we step out and trust Him, then anything can happen. So, Rosy, I just want to say thank you so much. And I look forward to being back in the building where I'm hearing kind of a hive of activity happening in another corner of the building. And I think what you and your team are doing is fantastic. So
thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.
Thanks. Bye.